Imagine an incredibly health-conscious 50-year-old.
Right.
They wake up every morning, and they do what, what the modern wellness industry tells them is the ultimate undeniable good.
Usually some kind of green juice.
Exactly. They blend up this thick, vibrant green smoothie. Raw spinach, celery, maybe some beetroot.
Oh, man.
Right. And they drink it down feeling energized. They assume they are hydrating their cells, detoxifying their liver, and just flooding their system with these life-extending superfoods.
That is the promise everyone buys into, yeah.
But what they do not know, what is entirely invisible to them, is that with every single sip, they are sending millions of microscopic, razor-sharp glass shards directly into their kidneys.
It is genuinely terrifying.
They are detonating a concentrated biological bomb inside their own vascular system.
And
I mean, within hours, this healthy routine could send them straight to the emergency room with acute organ distress.
I have to just sigh every time I think about this. It is a profound systemic crisis of misinformation. As researchers in longevity and renal pathology, we look at the sheer volume of this aggressive, clean living advice circulating today, and it is chilling.
It really is.
There is a complete fundamental disregard for the mechanical reality of the aging human body. People are blindly adopting these intense dietary regimens without realizing that our organs are not indestructible, static machines.
And that is exactly what we are dismantling today.
Yeah.
Our mission for this deep dive is grave, and it is urgent.
Absolutely.
We are acting as an investigative medical panel today to unpack a highly alarming health protocol. And this is specifically concerning adults over the age of 45 with declining kidney function.
Right. The over 45 demographic is crucial here.
Because if you are listening to this and thinking, I have eaten a beet salad or a spinach smoothie every week for my entire adult life and I am perfectly fine, you need to understand that kidney decline is entirely silent.
Completely silent.
It is a silent killer right up until the moment you fall off a metabolic cliff.
Yeah.
So we're going to analyze a clinical reality where the most widely praised nutrient-dense superfoods biologically transform into physiological poisons the second they enter an aging or compromised renal system.
Exactly. When we step into the world of renal pathology, the static rulebook of nutrition is completely shredded.
Thrown out the window.
Right. Because as we age, and especially as hypertension or early-stage kidney disease sets in, the kidneys naturally decline. They lose their structural integrity.
They break down.
They become quite literally like a torn sieve. They completely lose their evolutionary ability to filter out excess minerals. And when that happens, specific vegetables turn into hidden, circulating biological threats.
So to understand how a superfood becomes an assassin, we have to start with the microscopic anatomy.
Right, the mechanics.
We cannot just list foods. We have to explain the how and the why. So let's begin with the biology of this failing sieve. What are the kidneys actually doing when they are functioning optimally?
Well, the kidneys serve three non-negotiable fundamental functions in human physiology. First, they are the primary waste filtration system. They are constantly, second by second, clearing out toxic metabolic byproducts.
Like creatinine.
Yes, creatinine, which is a byproduct of normal muscle breakdown, and urea, which is a byproduct of protein metabolism.
Okay, so waste is number one.
Right. Second, they are the master regulators of your fluid balance. They maintain the exact volume of water in your vascular system.
Which dictates your blood pressure.
Exactly. And third, they control your mineral balance. They keep your electrolytes, specifically potassium, phosphorus, and sodium, in an incredibly tight, highly regulated window.
Okay, let me stop you there for a second.
Sure.
We throw around the term filtration system all the time, but I want to give you, the listener, a mechanical analogy to visualize this.
I think that helps, yeah.
Think of the kidneys as a highly sophisticated, microscopic water filtration plant for a major city. The heart is the massive industrial pump driving the city's water into this plant. Under normal circumstances, the specialized filters inside the plant catch the toxic debris, and clean, balanced water flows back into the city's plumbing.
Right.
But what actually are those filters? I mean, what is the microscopic reality of the sieve?
So the filters are called nephrons. You have about 1 million of them in each kidney.
1 million per kidney. Wow.
Yeah. And inside each nephron is a structure called the glomerulus, which is essentially a tiny microscopic knot of extremely delicate blood vessels.
Capillaries.
Just a tight knot of vessels.
Exactly. As blood is pushed through this knot by the pressure from the heart, water and waste are forced out through the capillary walls. It is a brilliant, elegant system, but it is also incredibly fragile.
And when those filters tear, like when the capillaries in the glomerulus harden and break under the pressure of hypertension or aging,
Then the sieve is torn. You aren't just letting a little bit of dirty water slip through.
right, you are completely losing the ability to regulate the chemicals in the city's water supply. And when that happens, two silent killers emerge directly from the plant foods we consume.
2 killers.
Yes. The first is potassium.
Now, potassium is heavily pushed in wellness culture.
Yep.
Eat bananas, eat avocados.
Constantly.
But what happens when the torn sieve cannot excrete it?
This is where we see a terrifying cardiology link. In a healthy physiology, potassium is essential. But when a failing kidney cannot clear the excess, potassium begins to accumulate rapidly in the bloodstream.
Okay.
This condition is called hyperkalemia, and high potassium directly threatens the resting membrane potential of your heart muscle cells.
Let's break that down. Resting membrane potential. For those of us without a cardiology degree, are we basically talking about the heart's electrical spark plug?
Yes.
Like the battery that allows the muscle to fire and relax?
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it. Think of your heart cells like tiny batteries. To beat, the battery has to discharge an electrical signal and then immediately recharge. It recharges by moving sodium and potassium back and forth across the cell wall. But if there's too much potassium physically floating outside the cell in the bloodstream, the chemical gradient is destroyed.
So the battery cannot recharge.
Exactly. The heart muscle becomes electrically chaotic. It causes highly irregular heart rhythms, arrhythmias.
Oh, wow.
And if the potassium spike is sharp enough, it can literally induce sudden cardiac arrest. The heart just stops.
I mean, just pause on that. The food that was supposed to nourish the body stops the heart. That is chilling.
It is a devastating reality.
We are talking about a vegetable dish directly causing cardiac arrest because the kidney failed to clear the minerals.
Yes.
And what is the second silent killer?
Oxalate. This is a naturally occurring compound found abundantly in dark leafy greens. Plants produce it as a defense mechanism against insects.
Right.
Again, a healthy kidney filters it out seamlessly and you just pee it out. But a failing kidney cannot. When oxalate builds up in the blood, it aggressively seeks out and binds with free calcium.
And this creates calcium oxalate crystals. Now, when I hear crystals, I think of something harmless, like a grain of table salt or soft sludge. But from what I understand of the clinical literature, that is fundamentally incorrect.
It is a devastatingly incorrect assumption. Under an electron microscope, calcium oxalate crystals do not look like table salt.
What do they look like?
They look like jagged, razor-sharp needles and deeply faceted shards.
So we are not talking about sludge. We are literally talking about millions of microscopic shards of broken glass floating through the blood.
Yes. And consider the mechanics of what happens next. The blood carries these sharp shards directly back into the kidneys to be filtered.
Back into the broken sieve.
Exactly. They are forced into the tiny, impossibly delicate renal tubules of the nephron. But because the sieve is damaged and the fluid flow is compromised, these shards cannot pass through. They become trapped.
I want to make sure we are entirely clear on the pathology here. As the body attempts to force these trapped shards through the tubules, what is physically happening to the kidney tissue?
They physically scratch, tear, and lacerate the interior walls of the renal tubules. They completely block the flow.
That is horrifying.
It is. The immediate physiological response to this laceration is acute massive inflammation. White blood cells rush to the site of the microtears to try and heal the damage.
Right, the immune response.
But this aggressive immune response, combined with the physical blockage, causes rapid, permanent scarring of the nephron. It is called fibrosis. That specific filtering unit is destroyed forever.
Wow. So to survive this biological reality, we cannot just guess. We must be surgical with our nutrition.
Absolutely surgical.
We have to identify the rare pharmacological interventions, the specific foods that actually assist this failing filtration system rather than battering it.
Right.
We need to offload the trash before it even reaches the broken water plant. And that brings us to an incredibly cheap, often entirely overlooked vegetable, zucchini.
What's fascinating here, and I say this as a researcher who looks at thousands of food profiles, is that zucchini represents an extreme, almost miraculous anomaly in the plant kingdom.
How so?
Almost all vegetables are inherently rich in potassium. It is fundamentally how plants grow in soil. But zucchini is a striking exception. It contains an exceptionally low amount of potassium,
How low?
only about 140 to 150 milligrams per 100 grams. Furthermore, it contains almost absolute zero sodium.
Hold on, let me challenge this.
Mm.
Why is that specific number, 140 milligrams, so critical? We are dealing with a patient who is watching their glomerular filtration rate, their GFR, slowly drop. Why does it matter if it's 140 milligrams versus, say, 400 milligrams?
Because 140 milligrams sits safely below the threshold that triggers a hyperkalemic response in a compromised patient.
Okay.
It provides a safe biological caloric source. I mentioned earlier that high potassium threatens the electrical stability of the heart. For a patient with a declining GFR, eating a standard potassium-rich vegetable dish is like playing Russian roulette with their cardiac rhythm. Zucchini completely bypasses this danger. It allows patients to eat a substantial volume of food, to physically fill their stomach and satisfy their hunger without detonating a potassium bomb in their bloodstream.
And the zero sodium aspect. We know sodium is bad, but
Yeah.
mechanically, why is zero sodium a baseline requirement here?
Sodium is essentially a molecular magnet for water.
Right.
When you consume sodium, it enters the bloodstream and forces the body to retain water to dilute it. This pulls fluid from the surrounding cells into the vascular system.
Increasing the volume.
Yes, when your blood volume increases, your blood pressure spikes. Imagine the heart having to pump a much larger volume of liquid through those already damaged, cracked capillaries in the kidney.
It would just blow them out.
Exactly. By offering zero sodium, zucchini prevents this massive fluid shift. It actively stabilizes blood pressure, which is the single most important factor in preventing the remaining highly fragile capillaries from bursting under hydrostatic pressure.
But the therapeutic value of zucchini goes even deeper than just what it lacks. It is about what it contains. Zucchini is packed with a highly valuable soluble fiber called pectin.
Yes, pectin is crucial.
I really want to unpack the chemistry of this because the mechanism is extraordinary. How exactly does pectin operate as a clinical intervention in the gut?
This is where food truly acts as targeted medicine. When you consume zucchini, the pectin travels down into the intestines. Pectin is a complex carbohydrate, a polysaccharide.
Okay.
Once it enters the wet environment of the human gut, it interacts with water and structurally expands, forming a highly viscous, thick, gel-like matrix across the intestinal lining.
And this gel isn't just a physical barrier, is it? It's biochemically active.
Deeply active, the molecular structure of this gel acts as an intestinal binder, a trap.
A trap for what?
Due to its chemical polarity, it aggressively binds to heavy metals and, most importantly, to the toxic byproducts of protein metabolism, specifically urea.
Wait, I need to push back on this to make sure the listener grasps the sheer magnitude of what you just said. Are you telling me that a plain, watery vegetable like a zucchini is actively pulling toxins out of the body?
Yes.
By binding to the urea right there in the digestive tract, is this pectin gel essentially creating a biological bypass? Is it artificially reducing the kidney's workload before the toxins even reach the blood?
That is exactly what it is doing.
That is incredible.
In a patient with advanced kidney disease, the urea levels in the blood get so high that the urea literally leaks backward through the intestinal wall into the gut.
Leaks backward.
Yes. If left alone, it would just be reabsorbed into the bloodstream, forcing the exhausted, failing kidneys to filter the exact same toxic waste a second or even a third time. It is a vicious loop of toxicity.
A death spiral for the organ.
Precisely. But the pectin gel intercepts this process. As the urea enters the gut, the pectin matrix traps it. It locks the toxins inside the molecular structure of the gel in the intestines, preventing reabsorption.
So it can't get back into the blood.
Right. The body then forces this trapped waste to be excreted safely through bowel movements. It is an immediate, profound, mechanical offloading of the burden on the overworked nephrons.
That is a brilliant mechanism. We're using a plant fiber to literally throw the metabolic trash out the back door so the kidney never has to see it.
Exactly.
But I know the preparation of this vegetable is a matter of life and death. We cannot just fry it in butter, can we?
Huh. No, and this is where so many patients make a catastrophic error. You must absolutely avoid deep frying or heavy, prolonged stir frying with oil.
Why?
High heat and heavy lipids destroy the molecular integrity of the pectin and alter the digestive process, completely negating the gel-forming capability.
So what is the strict clinical rule?
The rule is to steam the zucchini for exactly 5 to 7 minutes. That is the precise thermal window.
5 to 7 minutes.
It is long enough to soften the tough outer cellular walls for digestion, but short enough to preserve the crucial biochemical structure of the pectin and the water-soluble vitamins.
Okay, so through zucchini, we have secured a safe, low potassium calorie source that actively binds and removes waste.
Hmm.
That is a massive first step.
It is.
But offloading the trash doesn't fix the broken pipes that are already there. We have to pivot to the next urgent goal, repairing the structural vascular damage that has already occurred within the microscopic architecture of the kidney itself.
Right.
And that brings us to our second pharmacological intervention, the red bell pepper.
This requires a very careful, immediate distinction. Because in the culinary world, many people group red bell peppers together with tomatoes simply because they share a bright red color and are often used together in salads.
Yeah, totally.
But from a renal pathology perspective, they exist in entirely different universes. Tomatoes are an absolute potassium bomb. They are highly dangerous for compromised kidneys.
Okay.
Red bell peppers, however, are exceptionally low in potassium, completely eliminating the risk of inducing a cardiac arrhythmia while simultaneously delivering an extraordinary payload of structural nutrients.
Specifically, we are talking about vitamin C and powerful red antioxidants. Red bell peppers contain 3 times the vitamin C of an orange.
Yes.
But for a patient whose kidney is failing, why is vitamin C so critical?
To answer that, we have to return to the vascular pathology of the organ. Remember the glomerulus, that knot of millions of microscopic fragile capillaries?
The sieve.
Right. When a patient develops chronic kidney disease, these tiny blood vessels endure immense shear stress. The endothelial lining, the inner wall of the blood vessel, becomes brittle. It hardens, and under the high pressure of the blood, it begins to crack and leak.
And vitamin C is the repair material. Let's explain this process simply. How does vitamin C physically fix a cracked microscopic blood vessel?
Vitamin C is the fundamental, non-negotiable chemical catalyst for the synthesis of collagen.
Okay, collagen.
Collagen is the structural protein that gives blood vessels their elasticity and strength. It is the biological mortar. When you deliver a massive, safe dose of vitamin C via the red bell pepper, you are literally providing the raw cellular materials the body needs to synthesize new collagen.
Oh, wow.
This physically reinforces and rebuilds the elasticity of those glomerular blood vessel walls, preventing them from shattering under the city's water pressure.
But the physical cracking of the vessels is only half the battle. When those vessels crack, the tissue becomes highly inflamed. It is a biological war zone down there at the cellular level.
Yes, the oxidative stress is immense. When tissue is damaged, the body produces free radicals.
Let's define free radicals for the listener, because it's a buzzword that loses its meaning.
At a chemical level, a free radical is an unstable molecule that is missing an electron. Because it is unstable, it aggressively attacks the surrounding healthy tissue, in this case, the remaining healthy nephrons, to steal an electron and stabilize itself.
Like atomic theft.
Exactly. This stealing process causes rapid cascading cell death and permanent scarring.
So how does the red bell pepper intervene in this atomic theft?
The red bell pepper is packed with deep red enzymatic antioxidants, specifically a compound called lycopene. Antioxidants are molecules that have extra electrons to spare.
Okay.
They act as a highly specialized cleanup crew. The lycopene freely donates its extra electrons to the free radicals, instantly neutralizing them before they can attack the nephron walls.
Wow. So it stops the chain reaction.
It rapidly cools the inflammation. It arrests the cellular destruction. This is how you slow down the scarring process, and this is how you arrest that terrifying steady drop in the glomerular filtration rate. You are providing biological armor.
It is exactly like pouring a highly advanced, flexible antioxidant resin into an aging, brittle, cracking pipe system. You are reinforcing the plumbing from the inside out.
That's a great way to put it.
But again, the chemistry dictates the preparation, doesn't it?
Entirely. Vitamin C and these specific enzymatic antioxidants are highly unstable when exposed to prolonged heat. If you roast or heavily cook a red bell pepper, the thermal energy literally shatters the delicate vitamin bonds.
So you ruin it.
You transform a life-saving, biologically active superfood into a pile of dead, therapeutically useless fiber.
So what is the protocol?
You must eat red bell peppers, raw, perhaps sliced thin in a salad, or lightly stir-fry them for absolutely no more than 2 to 3 minutes on high heat. And crucially, you should pair them with a small amount of extra virgin olive oil.
Why the oil?
Because lycopene is a fat-soluble compound. If you eat it completely without fat, much of it will pass through your digestive tract unabsorbed.
I see.
The healthy monounsaturated fats in the olive oil act as a chemical carrier vehicle, ensuring the body can actively absorb the lycopene across the intestinal wall and deliver it directly to the renal tissue.
So we have the waste-binding pectin of the zucchini and the capillary armor of the red bell pepper. We've offloaded the trash and reinforced the pipes. But now we must address the systemic environment surrounding those pipes. We have to look at an agonizing complication that very often is what actually kills kidney patients. The breakdown of the gut-kidney axis and the resulting extreme acidity of the blood.
Yes.
Our third intervention is cabbage.
If we look deeply into the most recent clinical literature, cabbage is truly the golden key to stabilizing the gut-kidney axis.
Really, just regular cabbage.
It is a humble, inexpensive vegetable, but its biochemical profile is staggering. It contains uniquely high levels of a volatile sulfur compound called sulforaphane, and it is a highly alkaline food.
Let's break down that vicious cycle you mentioned earlier, the gut-kidney axis. How does a failing kidney destroy the gut? And how does that damaged gut then turn around and finish off the kidney?
It is a devastating, accelerating feedback loop. As we discussed, when the kidneys fail, urea builds up in the blood. This high concentration of urea diffuses into the gastrointestinal tract. Now, the human gut is filled with trillions of bacteria, the microbiome. When this massive influx of urea hits the gut, specific pathogenic, harmful bacteria begin to gorge on it.
They eat the urea.
They metabolize the urea and break it down into ammonia.
And ammonia is highly toxic. It's essentially bleach.
Exactly. This ammonia severely alters the pH of the gut, killing off the beneficial bacteria and allowing the pathogens to multiply uncontrollably.
Oh, wow.
These pathogens create immense inflammation and physically burn the intestinal lining, creating microscopic ulcers. Because the gut lining is now compromised and porous, a massive wave of new toxins easily leaks back out of the gut and into the bloodstream.
Back into the blood.
The failing kidneys are then forced to try and filter this massive new wave of toxins, which damages them further, causing more urea to build up, leaking back into the gut, and the cycle accelerates into systemic failure.
It's a biological nightmare. The body is essentially poisoning itself from the inside out. So where does sulforaphane, the sulfur compound in cabbage, step in?
Sulforaphane aggressively and chemically intervenes in the gut environment. It has profound antimicrobial properties. It actively targets and eliminates those specific, harmful, pathogenic bacteria that are producing the ammonia.
It kills the source.
By eradicating the source of the toxicity, it rapidly reduces the inflammation and helps heal the intestinal ulcers, effectively sealing the leaks in the gut lining.
It acts as an intestinal sealant.
Yes. Furthermore, the insoluble fiber in cabbage acts as a mechanical broom. It sweeps waste out of the colon, preventing chronic constipation.
Which is important.
We must understand that for a renal patient, constipation is not just a matter of gastrointestinal discomfort. It is a lethal physiological threat.
Why?
If waste sits stagnant in the colon, the toxins are continuously reabsorbed through the bowel wall into the blood, causing an immediate, dangerous spike in creatinine levels that can trigger an acute crisis.
But there's another layer to the cabbage intervention, and it addresses perhaps one of the most agonizing unseen complications of advanced kidney failure, metabolic acidosis.
This is where the suffering of the patient becomes truly profound. One of the kidney's major jobs is to filter out and eliminate hydrogen ions, which are acids, from the blood.
Right.
Because the filtering units are failing, these hydrogen ions build up. The patient's blood literally begins to turn acidic.
And what does that do to the body? Let's explain blood pH and the cellular response.
Your entire body runs on enzymes. Enzymes are proteins that facilitate every chemical reaction that keeps you alive, from digesting food to firing neurons.
Okay.
But enzymes can only function in a very strict neutral pH environment. As the blood pH drops and becomes acidic, these enzymes physically change shape. They denature, and they stop working.
They just break down.
The entire cellular enzyme system of the body begins to shut down.
What does that look like for the patient sitting in the clinic?
The clinical presentation is tragic. Because the cells cannot generate energy, patients suffer from an overwhelming, crushing, bone-deep exhaustion.
Well,
Because lactic acid and other acids build up in the tissues, they experience severe, unremitting muscle pain. And because the nervous system enzymes are malfunctioning, they are plagued by chronic, untreatable insomnia. Their cells are effectively suffocating in an acidic environment.
I have to ask a rhetorical question here, and I want you, the listener, to really think about the tragedy of this. How many adults over 45 are treating this agonizing daily muscle pain and this chronic insomnia with over-the-counter painkillers and heavy sleep aids?
Far too many.
Painkillers like NSAIDs, which, by the way, are notoriously nephrotoxic and directly destroy the remaining blood flow to the kidneys.
Yes, it's a terrible cycle.
They are masking the symptoms with chemicals that are actively killing the organ, when the root cause is highly acidic blood. Blood that could be systematically buffered and neutralized by simply introducing specific alkaline vegetables like cabbage.
It is a profound failure of preventative medical education that this isn't the very first line of defense. Cabbage is highly alkaline.
So what does it do?
Once digested, it provides specialized alkaline mineral compounds that enter the bloodstream and actively bind to those excess hydrogen ions. It chemically neutralizes the acid. It acts as a systemic buffer, restoring the cellular pH to normal.
And when the pH normalizes?
Once that chemical stability is achieved, the cellular enzymes snap back into their correct shape. They begin functioning again. The muscle pain naturally recedes. The overwhelming exhaustion lifts. The mental clarity returns. The patient can finally achieve deep, restorative sleep. It is a biological reset.
But as with everything we've discussed, the preparation rule for cabbage is arguably the most unforgiving.
It is absolute. You must adhere to the strict no salt principle.
Let's remind the listener why. Salt is sodium.
And sodium drives that catastrophic hydrostatic pressure in the glomeruli. If you salt your cabbage or boil it in a high-sodium broth, you completely negate every single therapeutic benefit of the sulforaphane and the alkalinity, and you actively batter the kidney with pressure.
So what do you use?
You must use herbs, garlic, or fresh ginger for flavor.
And what about the cooking time?
Thermal degradation is, again, a massive risk. You must steam or boil the cabbage very quickly, just 5 to 7 minutes.
5 to 7 minutes again.
It must retain a slight crunch. If you overcook it until it turns yellow and mushy, the volatile sulfur compounds, the actual sulforaphane molecules, have been physically broken apart and destroyed by the heat.
Okay. We have covered the lifesavers, the biological armor, the pectin in the zucchini, the vitamin C in the bell pepper, the sulforaphane in the cabbage.
Right.
But the good news of this panel ends here. We must now pivot. We must turn from the precise therapeutic interventions to the lethal hidden dangers. We are exposing the healthy foods, the widely celebrated superfoods that cause immediate catastrophic mechanical damage to compromised kidneys.
This is where the wellness industry's generic messaging becomes actively mathematically dangerous. What heals a healthy, robust person can easily destroy a compromised one.
Exactly. And the first healthy assassin on our list is one that has been universally praised for nearly a century.
Yeah.
Spinach. We are taught from childhood that spinach is the ultimate superfood for strength, packed with iron and vitamins. But for a kidney patient, it is an acute, terrifying danger.
We have to dismantle the myth. The danger of spinach goes far beyond its potassium content. The true mechanical threat is the massive, incredibly concentrated amount of oxalate it contains.
Oxalates.
As we discussed in the beginning, a healthy, robust kidney can process and eliminate natural oxalates. But a weakened kidney, one with a declining GFR, is completely incapable of clearing it.
Let's walk through a hypothetical case study. Let's look at the grim biological breakdown of what happens the moment a 55-year-old patient with early-stage kidney disease eats a large bowl of fresh spinach salad.
The spinach enters the stomach, and the massive payload of oxalate is absorbed through the gut wall and enters the bloodstream in extremely high concentrations.
Okay.
Almost immediately, driven by basic chemistry, the oxalate molecules seek out and aggressively bind with the free calcium circulating in the blood. This rapid chemical reaction forms the calcium oxalate crystals,
The shards.
the microscopic shards of glass. Now, the blood carries these millions of jagged shards directly into the renal artery and pushes them into the microscopic, delicate renal tubules of the nephrons.
But the nephrons are already damaged. The flow is slow.
Exactly. The sieve is torn, the fluid flow is sluggish, and these sharp shards become physically trapped in the narrow tubules. As the pressure from the heart attempts to force them through, these jagged crystals physically scratch, tear, and deeply lacerate the single-cell-thick interior walls of the renal tubules.
The tissue is being shredded from the inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
They completely block the flow of fluid. The immediate physiological response is acute, massive inflammation.
Right.
The immune system detects the lacerations, and the white blood cells rush to the site of the microtears. The resulting aggressive immune response meant to heal the tears actually causes rapid, permanent fibrotic scarring of the nephron. The filtering unit is choked off and destroyed forever.
But hold on, I have to push back here because the programming runs deep. We have spent decades telling patients to eat spinach for their health. You need the iron. It gives you energy.
I know.
Are we literally telling them, without realizing it, that they are pouring a bucket of sharp, jagged sand directly into a biological engine that is already half-clogged and failing?
Yes, we are. And we must address the iron myth. Yes, spinach contains iron, but it is non-heme iron, which is poorly absorbed by the human body anyway.
So it's not even doing what they think it's doing.
To sacrifice your remaining irreplaceable kidney function for a marginal amount of plant iron is an unbelievable medical tragedy. For someone with a low GFR, consuming even a single standard bowl of spinach soup or drinking one of those incredibly popular thick green smoothies packed with raw spinach can trigger a sudden, overwhelming oxalate spike.
Wow.
This isn't a slow, imperceptible decline over years. This induces what we call acute kidney injury.
Acute kidney injury, meaning immediate failure.
Yes, it can instantly accelerate the total failure of the organ, bringing forward the day that patient requires permanent, life-saving dialysis by years. It is catastrophic.
If you're craving leafy greens, you must substitute them immediately. Romaine lettuce or standard cabbage have a fraction of the oxalate and will not shred your delicate tubules.
Absolutely.
You cannot trade your remaining kidney function for a bowl of spinach just because a fitness magazine told you it was healthy. But while the terror of spinach is mechanical physical laceration by crystals, the next vegetable on our blacklist causes profound systemic cardiovascular shock. We are moving to healthy assassin number 2, beetroot.
Beetroot, or red beet, represents one of the most tragic, misguided medical misconceptions I see in clinical practice. Because it has a vibrant, deep red color and a naturally sweet, earthy taste, it is constantly passed around in wellness circles as a blood-boosting superfood.
Let's call it what it is, the anemia myth. Why do renal patients even have anemia in the first place?
It is a critical hormone failure. Healthy kidneys produce a specific hormone called erythropoietin, or EPO. EPO acts as the chemical signal that tells your bone marrow to manufacture new red blood cells. When the kidneys begin to fail and scar over, they stop producing this hormone.
Oh, I see.
Without the signal, the bone marrow stops making red blood cells. The patient develops severe anemia, they feel incredibly weak, they look pale, and they are desperate for energy.
And then a well-meaning friend tells them to drink highly concentrated beetroot juice because, well, it's dark red, it looks like blood, it will build your blood.
Which is a fatal error based on visual pseudoscience. Relying on beetroot instead of doctor-prescribed, targeted medical treatments like synthetic EPO injections or intravenous iron is dangerous enough. But the beetroot itself is actively, violently destroying the remaining kidney function.
Because it's one of the most heavily mineral-dense root vegetables on the planet. Let's unpack the 3 distinct biochemical crises that beetroot triggers in a compromised patient, starting with a potassium shock.
Beetroot, as a root vegetable, pulls massive amounts of minerals from the soil. It contains an overwhelming concentration of potassium. When a kidney patient consumes a beetroot salad or drinks a beet juice shot, that massive potassium payload floods the bloodstream.
We are back to the battery analogy.
Exactly. The broken kidneys cannot excrete it. Within hours, the extracellular potassium levels spike to critical thresholds. This destroys the chemical gradient of the heart cells. The battery cannot recharge.
Wow.
This places direct, immediate, agonizing stress on the heart muscle. The electrical signals that govern the heartbeat become chaotic. The patient risks severe arrhythmias, palpitations, and the very real threat of sudden cardiac arrest.
And while the heart is struggling to maintain its rhythm, the patient's skeletal system is simultaneously being attacked. Let's talk about second crisis, the phosphorus crisis. Let's explain how phosphorus interacts with calcium in the blood.
Alongside potassium, beetroot is loaded with incredibly high levels of phosphorus. Again, the torn sieve cannot clear it. High blood phosphorus is highly toxic to the body. So the body panics and attempts to chemically balance the phosphorus by binding it with calcium.
But where does it get the calcium?
From the largest reserve in the body, the skeleton.
Yes. The body initiates a process to forcibly leach calcium out of your own bones. It pulls the calcium from your skeleton and dumps it into the bloodstream to bind with the toxic phosphorus.
Exactly.
But that new calcium-phosphorus compound doesn't just float harmlessly through the blood, does it?
No, it is a heavy, dense mineral complex. It deposits itself directly into the endothelial lining of your blood vessels.
It embeds into the walls of the arteries.
Yes. This causes a pathology known as rapid systemic vascular calcification. Your arteries literally begin to harden and turn to stone.
Turn to stone.
As the arteries harden, they lose their elasticity and they narrow, severely restricting the flow of oxygen-rich blood to the entire body. But most tragically, it restricts blood flow to the already dying kidneys, starving them of the very oxygen and nutrients they desperately need to survive.
The heart is failing electrically, the arteries are turning to stone, and then the beetroot delivers its final, devastating blow: nitrate overload.
Beetroot is famous in the athletic world for its naturally occurring nitrates. In a healthy 20-year-old Olympic athlete, nitrates are wonderful. They trigger a chemical release of nitric oxide, which dilates the blood vessels, opening them up to improve oxygen delivery to the muscles during a sprint.
Well, let's apply that mechanism to our patient. Explain forced vasodilation in a 50-year-old patient with compromised kidneys.
We just established that this patient has hardened, calcified, brittle capillaries in their kidneys. If you introduce a massive dose of nitrates, the chemical signal aggressively forces those brittle vessels to suddenly dilate, to expand.
Right.
In a rigid, damaged system, forced vasodilation is a nightmare. It causes extreme, violent fluctuations in blood pressure.
It is exactly like sending continuous violent tidal waves crashing against the already brittle, failing microscopic walls of the glomeruli. You are physically battering the remaining nephrons with hydraulic pressure until they shatter, undergo irreversible fibrosis, and die. Beetroot acts like a hemodynamic battering ram.
It is the absolute perfect storm of biological destruction for a renal patient. Potassium stops the heart, phosphorus turns the arteries to stone, and nitrates batter the fragile kidney filters.
If beetroot is a battering ram, the final dangerous vegetable on our list represents a modern wellness trend that acts like a highly concentrated biochemical bomb dropped directly onto the renal system. We were talking about healthy assassin number 3, celery juice.
The celery juice trend is a nephrologist's absolute worst nightmare. It is the purest epitome of clean living trends operating in a total dangerous medical vacuum. Influencers and magazines tell people it detoxifies the liver, clears the skin, and promotes rapid weight loss. And as a result, people with declining kidney function are drinking massive, concentrated 16-ounce glasses of raw celery juice every single morning on an empty stomach.
Let's break down the sheer biological stress this places on impaired kidneys, starting with the most critical element, the sodium content. We think of celery as just crunchy water, but biologically, what is it?
Celery is biologically unique among common vegetables. Its root system aggressively draws up and stores incredibly high levels of natural sodium from the soil.
And as we have established, sodium is the absolute enemy of the failing kidney. Let's explain hydrostatic pressure one more time to the listener, because this is the mechanism of death for the organ.
Water always follows sodium. It is a strict law of cellular biology. When you drink a massive glass of celery juice, you are flooding the vascular system with sodium. The body, trying to maintain its blood salinity, immediately pulls water from the surrounding tissues into the blood vessels. This causes massive, immediate water retention. The total volume of your blood expands rapidly.
Because it's trying to dilute the sodium.
Exactly. Because your blood vessels are a closed pipe system, when you increase the volume of liquid inside the pipes, you drastically and violently spike the systemic blood pressure.
You're instantly increasing the hydrostatic pressure inside those delicate, torn microscopic filters. It is the fastest, most efficient way to physically blow out the remaining capillaries and accelerate glomerular damage.
Yes. But the danger of celery juice is not just the celery itself. It is the physical mechanical process of juicing.
I really want to investigate the mechanics here. When you take an entire bunch of celery, maybe 8 or 10 large, heavy stalks, and you run it through a mechanical extractor, what are you actually doing to the plant?
You are systematically, mechanically stripping away the one thing that makes vegetable consumption safe for humans, the insoluble fiber. In the human digestive system, plant fiber is the biological lifeline.
How so?
Fiber acts as a physical barrier, a thick mesh in the gut. It severely slows down the digestion and absorption of sugars, minerals, and electrolytes. It paces the delivery of these nutrients across the intestinal wall and into the blood so the liver and kidneys can handle them in a measured, slow, controlled way over hours.
So, by mechanically removing the fiber, you are completely removing the biological brake pedal. You are taking the immense potassium and sodium payload of an entire massive bunch of celery, condensing it down into a few ounces of pure liquid, and slamming it into the digestive tract all at once.
Exactly. Because there is no fiber mesh to slow it down, that massive, concentrated payload of electrolytes crosses the intestinal wall and hits the bloodstream instantly. The entire biological burden is immediately transferred to the weakened kidneys.
We are taking an exhausted organ, an organ that is barely keeping the patient alive. We strip away the fiber that naturally protects it, and we slam it with a massive, highly concentrated electrolyte load in a matter of seconds.
Devastating.
It is like taking a sick, exhausted patient who is struggling to walk, strapping a heavy sack of stones to their back, and forcing them to suddenly sprint at top speed, isn't it?
That is the perfect analogy, and the organ simply collapses under the weight. It cannot filter the sudden flood of potassium. It leads directly to rapid, acute nephron death and an immediate, life-threatening crisis of hyperkalemia. By following a wellness trend, you are literally poisoning your own filtration system in the blind pursuit of a misguided detox.
Having outlined the grave dangers of these biochemical mechanisms, the razor-sharp shards of spinach, the cardiovascular battering ram of beetroot, the concentrated biological bomb of celery juice, we cannot leave you, the listener, in a state of panic.
Right. We need to provide solutions.
As medical researchers, we must provide a rigorous, overarching clinical protocol to survive and navigate this perilous landscape.
Protecting the aging kidney is not about random starvation or fear. It is about implementing a strategic, highly precise, and scientifically grounded dietary revolution.
A revolution.
Yes. You have to understand a fundamental truth. Your kidneys do not need you to aggressively add new miracle compounds or extracts to your body. They simply need you to stop overloading them. They need you to provide exactly what they can handle and absolutely nothing more.
Which brings us to the clinical protocol. The 3 golden rules for the over 45 population, specifically those with any signs of hypertension or declining kidney function.
Let's go through them.
Rule number 1, always prioritize bland foods. We have said it before, but it must be canonized in your daily routine. Salt is enemy number 1.
Let's synthesize exactly why one final time so it is burned into memory. Salt is sodium. When you consume sodium, the biological imperative of the body is to maintain a specific salinity in the blood.
Right.
If sodium rises, the body is forced to retain water to dilute it. This increases your total blood volume. Imagine trying to force 100 gallons of water per minute through a garden hose designed for 50.
It would explode.
That is what you are doing to the microscopic blood vessels in your kidneys. The hydrostatic pressure fatally ruptures the glomeruli. You must season your food lightly with herbs, avoid all processed sauces, and ruthlessly eliminate artificial preservatives, which are universally packed with hidden, unlisted sodium.
Rule number 2, prioritize watery, low-potassium vegetables. We discussed the anomaly of zucchini, but this clinical category also includes cucumbers and white radish.
The overarching mechanism here is gentle, natural hydration. These specific vegetables contain high water content, but minimal, negligible minerals.
Okay.
They provide the necessary fluid to keep the biological pathways open and gently flush the toxins from the system, but they completely bypass the lethal potassium load that threatens the electrical stability of the heart. You must control your potassium intake to protect your life.
And finally, rule number 3, perhaps the most critical for early intervention because the kidney declines in silence. Become your own doctor and listen to your body's physiological SOS signals.
The body always communicates its structural failure. We just rarely know how to listen to the specific alarms. You have to look for the silent, easily dismissed signs.
Let's detail these physical signals. Say a patient experiences a sudden, persistent metallic taste in their mouth, or a sudden onset of unusual ammonia-like bad breath. They go to the dentist, thinking it's a cavity.
But it isn't a dental issue, and it isn't a gastrointestinal quirk. This is a terrifying late-stage sign of systemic uremia.
Uremia.
It means your kidneys are failing so profoundly that the toxic waste products, the urea we discussed earlier, are backing up through your entire vascular system, saturating your tissues, all the way to the saliva glands in your mouth. You are literally tasting your own metabolic waste.
Oh my God. And you must rigorously monitor your extremities. If you wake up with swollen ankles, or if you take your socks off at the end of the day and notice deep pitted marks left by the elastic that take minutes to fade, that is clinical edema.
That means your cardiovascular system and your kidneys are failing to pull the fluids back up from your extremities against gravity. The hydrostatic pressure regulation is failing. Water is pooling in your tissues.
But here is the absolute most crucial disclaimer of this entire deep dive. We are medical researchers uncovering the mechanisms, but everything we have discussed today is the biochemical foundation. If you're experiencing these symptoms, or if you have been diagnosed with any stage of kidney disease by a physician, you must never apply new restrictive diets blindly based on an audio program.
I need to speak directly to you, the listener, with the utmost gravity here. Kidney disease staging is highly complex and profoundly dangerous.
Yes.
The precise glomerular filtration rate, the specific electrolyte imbalances in your blood, the microscopic presence of proteins leaking into your urine, these variables differ wildly from patient to patient. Managing this requires a highly specific, individualized, mathematically calculated dietary regimen based on precise current blood and urine lab results. There is absolutely no one-size-fits-all cure. You must consult your treating nephrologist or a specialized board-certified renal dietitian.
They are the ones who can look at the exact lab numbers and tell you precisely how torn your specific sieve is and exactly how many milligrams of potassium your specific heart can safely withstand.
Correct.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We have covered an intense, truly staggering biological reality today. We have learned that protecting your aging kidneys is not about restriction for the sake of suffering. It is a surgical, precise, deeply scientific dietary strategy to avoid overloading a broken microscopic filter.
It's about precision.
It is about understanding the chemistry, utilizing the gel-forming pectin in zucchini to bind urea, the collagen-building vitamin C in red bell peppers to repair vessels, and the acid-neutralizing power of cabbage to restore cellular pH.
And equally, it is about ruthlessly eliminating the hidden dangers. Avoiding the microscopic glass shards of calcium oxalate in spinach, the cardiovascular calcification and pressure shock of beetroot, and the concentrated fiber-stripped biological balm of celery juice.
It's a complete shift in perspective.
It requires a fundamental paradigm shift in how we view the things we ingest. Food is not just fuel, and it is certainly not just a generic superfood. For a compromised patient, food is potent, highly reactive pharmacology.
I want to leave you with a final, somewhat chilling medical reflection to mull over on your own as you look at your next meal.
Okay.
We live in an era that is completely fundamentally obsessed with adding things to our bodies. We are constantly searching for more supplements, more exotic superfoods, more intense, highly concentrated extracts, all in the aggressive, desperate pursuit of extreme longevity. But based on the pathology we have unpacked today, what if the true secret to surviving past middle age isn't about what you can aggressively add to your system? What if it is about recognizing precisely what your aging, delicate organs can no longer endure? What if true longevity is found in the rigorous, disciplined art of subtraction?
That is the ultimate defining question of preventative medicine.
Listen to your body's quiet alarms. Respect the delicate microscopic mechanics of your organs. Consult your physicians, demand blood work, and never assume that a generic wellness trend is safe for your highly specific individual biology. Keep asking the hard questions.